Figli di te, Molly amiamo creato e iniziato da New Jersey. Last week today live presentato da Filtastic, Comics and Art.
Let's fucking go.
Hey everybody out there in YouTube land. Our guest is backstage already. I don't know if you could hear me, but see, when I told you I'm a very last minute guy, literally just went down the steps. I had to do dad things. I had to get my kid ready, my son eating rather, had to do a little grocery shopping this morning, but we're fully caffeinated in case you can't guess. In fact, I'll do this. I'll give a comic to anybody who can, on the first guess what song I may have been cabbage patching. Yes, cabbage patching to upstairs. And it wasn't actually playing. Here's the thing, it was just in my head. So that's the kind of day we're having. Anyway, hi, how's it going? And yes, although I already said I'm fully caffeinated, we just need to kick in just a little bit more, but you guys know that. So we're either going to go totally off the rails in about 10 minutes, or I'm going to crash, or both. But that's why you're here. So before we move any further, let's just say our hellos, and we're going to do a little bit of housekeeping, and then we'll get our guest on here. So first, of course, is Las Cruces. Las Cruces, I was concerned because I didn't see you as the first one last week. We're ready to send the search party out to you. I was afraid of those giant spiders out there in New Mexico that may have gotten you. But I'm glad to see that you're here. John's Comics with Kids, how are you, sir? I was just thinking about you because I was reading a little bit of stuff that's upcoming, I guess you could say, or some interviews with Tom Brevoort, whose name I could never say right, the editor on the From the Ashes X-Men. Let me do this so that you don't see my messiness on my desk. Still haven't really delved too much into that. I'm not liking a lot of what Tom has to say in his interviews. Wellbore, our friend to the north, how are you? The kids and the wife are upstairs, but I will pass on your best wishes. And Dismay, nope. I'm not going to say that you were. I'll say this: you weren't necessarily on the right track, but you may have been maybe in the zip code. Not even in the neighborhood, but, around. Evil's Comics, Mikey Evil, listening in. Mikey and I have been talking. Mike, excuse me. What am I saying, Mikey? He's not like eating cereal or anything like that. We've been talking because we have our Stephen King show every other week. And, I've been also reading a little bit. By reading, I mean listening on Audible to Salem's Lot, because that trailer looks very frightening. I usually don't like horror, but I'm definitely going to check that movie out. Probably have to wait either very late at night or very early in the morning because my wife will not watch that. Yeah, a lot hasn't impressed me with it. I'm hoping Wolverine is good and I'll be okay. Land Down Under, it's a good song. Don't Worry, Be Happy. Not either of which, by the way, are what I consider Cabbage Patch related songs, or songs that you could Cabbage Patch to. But what do I know? There's that crazy clip online of Dave Matthews doing something on stage, and people say, hey, I don't think there's any Dave Matthews songs that you can really do that to. I don't know. I got off the Dave Matthews train long ago, but I'd have to really give that a good think. So we'll do some general house cleaning first. I'm mentioning this in every video. Yeah, I didn't have a video come out this week. Busy week. We have my daughter's baptism tomorrow. So we've been slowly putting everything together. My wife may have said, why are you doing a show this weekend? We have the baptism tomorrow. I was like, that's tomorrow. We're living for today. And that's why we're here. But housekeeping, I'm going to say this probably at least until the end of next month. As you may know, I've done my first comic book covers for Legacy Comics, that's with an X. And if you purchase either the digital copy of Condry #4, it's the special cover. I don't have a picture because I'm not prepared and I can't do on-screen sharing anyway. Or the Job Dark Matches, which is a physical copy. It looks like a Grand Theft Auto type of cover. a donation will be made to Comics Curing Cancer with each purchase. So again, Conjury issue 4 digital edition, the one I did. If you know my artwork, then you'll know my style. And the Job, Dark Matches, the GTA looking cover, a donation will be made. Comics Curing Cancer, great books, great stories, and it's my first artwork. And you'll be helping Comics Curing Cancer, so it's a win all around. That's Legacy Comics, that's with an X.com. Legacy Comics, again with an X.com. I don't know why I did that, like some DMX stuff. And what else do we have? Yes, the Comic Book Community Awards. Voting is well underway. I am nominated for 3 awards this year. I am the underdog, I would assume, in all 3. Favorite community artist, best unboxing for channels 1,000 subscribers and below, and favorite channel for 1,000 subscribers and below. Yes, I'm happy that I'm nominated. Would I like to win? Yeah, it'd be nice. So if you haven't voted yet, please consider me for 1, 2, or all 3 categories. I'd be more than happy to do so. And of course, look at the rest of the ballot too. Vote for the channels that you like and continue to support this community. So I've been blabbering a good amount. Let me go ahead and bring in our guest. Coming to this is Brandon Ingram. How are you, Brandon?
Doing good. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, happy to have you here. I wasn't joking when I said I'm a last minute guy. I got to jump.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
You're good. While you were talking, I had to look up what cabbage patching was because I wasn't sure what that was or what you were talking about. But now I'm more informed, and this might not be it, but based on the definition I saw, "Call Me Al" or "You Can Call Me Al" would be a decent song to listen to. It's probably not the one you were listening to though.
No, but I will say this: now that you said it, it will be the song that's in my head for at least this afternoon.
Perfect.
Actually, funny Paul Simon question. This is what happens when I get overly caffeinated. So we're going to go down that road. I like to listen to the Professor of Rock. I don't know if you're familiar with him on YouTube.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, if you like any rock music, I'm going to say the latest he'll do is like the 90s and earlier. He's mostly like an 80s guy. I'll say that. He had just a little kind of look into Paul Simon recently.
Yeah.
And one thing I didn't know, what he was talking about, what is the song? I can't think of the name of it, of course. The one that Miley Cyrus covered recently. Yeah, but one thing I didn't know that I was kind of amused by is when he won, I think it was Album of the Year in 1976, before I was born, he actually came up on the stage and he thanked Stevie Wonder for not putting out an album that year.
Yeah, that would have knocked him out easily.
Trev is here. Hi, Trev.
Hey, Trev.
So, we're going to talk about Gallows Man. The Gallows Man. Before we get into it, why don't you give me your elevator pitch?
So, not even an elevator pitch. The thing I say when someone's just breezing right past Artist Alley and they are looking at the stuff real quick, it's like, what's this? Gallows Man is Adam West Batman meets Inglourious Bastards. That is the gist of it. The elevator pitch, though, is it's Adam West Batman meets Inglourious Bastards. It's set in the 1940s. He's beating up and killing Nazis, all while having this jovialness to him in like Silver Age comics and Golden Age comics. Kind of that jovialness, all while he's beating up, hanging, cracking necks, all that sort of stuff to bad guys. That's essentially the Gallows Man. It's all the fun, campy jokes and one-liners that you would see in something like 60s Batman, just with over-the-top cartoony violence as well.
Yeah, and I have to say, like, no spoilers, of course. The first issue, it like that scene, and if you know what I'm talking about, then you know that scene. I'm sure you know it. You wrote it, but to everybody else who's listening here, if you've read it and you know that scene, then you know what I'm talking about. That kind of stops you, like, oh, Okay, that took a left turn.
Yeah. That's always the one where like people read it as like, oh, it's like fun, dumb, like fun, funny, dumb humor sort of thing. Very much 60s Batman. Then that's like, oh crap, like it hits out of nowhere, and that very much is like Tarantino type inspirations. Because if anyone's seen any Tarantino movie, there are usually, not all of them, but usually most, like violent moments that like come out of nowhere,
Hmm.
just about. Um, a big example is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I won't spoil that movie if people haven't seen it, but it's a steady movie going throughout. Then the last 20 minutes just goes from 0 to 100. Like
Yeah.
it's very crazy.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That has another one of that seems like, oh, okay, wow, he's really not only taking a left turn from history, but just like, all right, while we're at it, let's just boom it in here. But
Yeah.
it's funny that you bring up Tarantino, because I was thinking in that one particular scene, I like that you made in The Gallows Man, not in Once Upon a Time. Tarantino doesn't need any promotion from us. Okay, he's good. Not that you need it, of course. I'm happy to talk to any creators here. But I thought it was an interesting choice. That it was like, he could do something like out of Reservoir Dogs that you see. I think it's been parodied so much or used so much in all forms since then, where you could like pan away from the camera or pan away from the panel, in this scene, and then you come back and
The ears
what
cut
happened
off
with that
and stuff.
scene.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, that's a very deliberate choice. So I was curious, when you were writing it, were you like, look, I'm just going to go into it, or was it just something that you thought didn't fit? Like, what was the thought behind that choice?
Well, a big reason for showing like some of those like oh crap, like violent aspects is very much the Gallows Man world is a hyperization of the 1940s, like our 1940s, and reading comics. Like in the 1940s, you had free reign in terms of what was on the rack. Like there are horror comics with like violence or like just blood and whatever, and there's no issue with that. And then there's also comics where like the heroes, like the golden age heroes, some are toting around guns, killing people, or just strangling people, killing them and stuff. And it's like, here's the thing. I am not for the comics code by any means. I think it set comics way back. The comics code did, where if it wasn't there, Western comics would be where manga is today if it wasn't for the comics code. That said, I do see what they were initially trying to do. I see the initial reason they just swung way too far. Because you would have like a 5-year-old like just walk into the drugstore basically and just like pick up and just some very very brutal stuff sometimes, and just imagine the little 5-year-old of like, yeah, go get him, yeah, kill that guy, kill that guy, Gallows Man.
Put a
And so
needle in her eye.
and so it was like, take that and just hyperize it times 10 sort of thing. And it's the society in the Gallows Man. The society as a whole is desensitized to violence, to where these like hard-hitting, shocking, grotesque violence things that may happen within the Gallows Man, for them it's just like, way to go, sport, like you did it, good job, Gallows Man. Like there's radio announcers and stuff that come on, they're like, the Gallows Man foiled their
You should,
bouts of villainy once again, way to go, Gallows Man. Like just different stuff like that, and just hyperizing it kind of.
You made me think of a point, but before I get into that, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Brandon. Dismay Comics, of course, has the Kickstarter for Gallows Man issue 3 up right now, and you're already funded, right?
Yeah.
Did
Within the first 40 hours, we were funded, and then like now it hasn't even been a full 4 days yet into the campaign, and now we're like almost at our first stretch goal.
There you go.
So everyone that has backed it so far, thank you guys so much, and help just keep this momentum going. Help spread this book out, because this is the only way to get the book. It's not going to be available anywhere else online. And I also am an indie publisher, so I'm not with Diamond. I'm not going through Diamond or Lunar or anything. So kind of the only way to get it is through the Kickstarter.
Yeah, and I'll say this: I have a link to the Kickstarter in the description for this video, so you can go ahead and click on that. Or if you want, just go to Kickstarter, type in The Gallows Man, and it pops up pretty quickly. So I was going to say too, if you haven't read issues 1 and 2, now's the opportunity. You can get all 3 through this Kickstarter, and I imagine it's going to have some nice stretch goals, but I guess we'll see that shortly.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to bring up, and then we do have a question actually from the audience here too. I like that you pointed out, you made a point of pointing out the hyper violence in here too. Trev actually just put up the link, so I'm going to keep that up on the screen for a moment.
Thank you, Trev.
Yeah, Trev, shipping guru. There you go. He's got that blue wrench, and I think he might be nominated for that wrench too. Just saying, if you guys haven't voted yet. But what was I going to say? Yeah, it was kind of a big distinction, and this isn't a spoiler. You kind of said it already. I was thinking while I was reading issue 2. We're so used to seeing Spider-Man where he beats somebody up and he webs them to a telephone pole or something, and Batman where he just knocks people out and has that moral code. And then here, he's literally hanging guys and just like, all right, I'm going to leave them here. They're good. They're dead. They're fine. They're not going to bother anybody. So it's like every time you want to make that Batman distinction, it's like, well, that main kind of I'm not going to kill anybody thing that Batman lives by, that main credo, is just absent from this. And and I'll say this too, if you guys haven't read it yet, it's done in a way that it's not heavy-handed, so to speak. Like you don't feel like you're reading an early Image comic. You know that you're reading something unique. It's comical, and then it's like Tarantino really is the best way you can put the kind of tone, I guess you could say. But
thank you.
We do. Oh, you're welcome. We do have a question here. So Mike from Evil's Comics, I did like the first issue, but have one issue. What's with the homeless alley scene? Seems cut and dry as far as morals, but that scene.
With that scene in particular, it is one of those things where when writing it, and I have a spin-off anthology called Tales from Town City that follows a couple of those homeless villains. I had that in there to where it's like these are homeless villains, but really, like, how bad are these guys? Like in issue 1 in particular, like it talks about Hypno Ray and Rusty Hook. Like they're mentioned in like one page sort of thing. And with Hypno Ray, Newsboys there, the Robin sidekick, basically, he's like, what evil did he do, Gallows Man? And Gallows Man's like, oh, don't get me started. That evil scum, he uses his hypnotism powers on grocery store clerks to make them think that his expired coupons aren't expired, and sometimes even gets it for free. He'll get canned corn and canned yams for free sometimes. Like it's obviously, to us, this isn't evil at all. Like these are, in their world, bad guys. For us, though, it's like, oh, that's nothing. But it's just that type of world where it is this hyperization of golden age comics, of like even the petty mugger is like that guy bad sort of thing, where it's like there's more to it, but this is a hyperization of that look at it sort of thing.
Yeah, it almost reminds me a little bit of like old school, not necessarily the comic, but the animation for the Tick, like that kind of. It's got a smattering, I'll say, of that kind of tone into it too.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So we have some new people who joined us. In case you just did, I'm talking right now to Brandon Ingram of Dismay Comics. He is talking about The Gallows Man. You could, again, support the Kickstarter, which Trev was nice enough to put the link up for, and you could also find a description. He's already funded, but you can catch up on issues 1 and 2 and get the upcoming issue number 3 just by supporting the Kickstarter if you'd like, and whatever other goodies he may have in store for us. One thing I have to say, the artwork works very well with the overall tone that you were going for. When you were starting to write The Gallows Man, did you have an idea of how you wanted to look in mind, or was it just kind of a feeling?
I did have that idea of very much like Silver Age or Golden Age type style, kind of somewhat cartoony like, especially with some of the violence and stuff. Don't want it like too realistic, because that can definitely like take you out. It would take me out in terms of reading it. But kind of having that Golden Age feel, as well as like Helen with her coloring, she does kind of the because we're not printing on newsprint, because that's like rare nowadays for newsprint. Newsprint actually costs more than standard nice comics nowadays. That's what's so crazy.
Considering the paper quality we've seen the past couple of years, that does not surprise me at all.
Well, especially, Marvel has some big issues, but there are some indie publishers like Image and stuff where they do have good paper quality, but yet newsprint, which once was the cheapest of the cheap, is now the expensive thing. It's weird. It's just rare. But yeah, so since we're not printing on newsprint, the colors we really want to feel like not. It's kind of a mix of modern coloring with the older style of coloring in terms of the color palettes, the slightly duller colors to give the kind of vintage retro feel sort of thing.
Yeah, I've only seen it digitally, but I'll say this: one thing that kind of caught me off guard, and it was a very nice surprise, is that when you're looking at the pencils for the first time, like you can see it's very kind of heavy-handed lining, and I mean that in a good way, line work and whatnot. And then you take a closer look, and I was like, oh no, these are deliberate decisions. It's not like it's not like, hey, let me just draw this type of thing. Because if you look closer, there's a whole lot more to it, and I really appreciated the style that Helen applied to this. The artist, what's her last name? I'm sorry.
Helen Bolton. Yeah, she's fantastic in this. She's like whatever the 5 number is in terms of saying like triple, whatever the 5 version of that, she's that threat. She's not triple threat. She's the 5 version of that threat, because she does pencils, inks, colors, lettering, also promo material sometimes, like the bookmark stretch goal. Like she did that sort of thing. Like she's fantastic. Helen's amazing. And this isn't like the first thing I worked on with her either. Like the very first thing I worked on was a 15-page horror little story. And I was looking, that was 2019 is when I discovered her through DeviantArt. And I was looking for someone that could do like a Dr. Seuss-esque art style sort of thing, because it works for this horror story. And I found her through DeviantArt, and worked on that. And Dismay Avenue #2 came out, which is my horror anthology series, and that story was in there. And yeah, since then we've just been working together. She's amazing.
Evil brought up a good point, and this didn't occur to me until he said it. So it's got very kind of Dick Tracy vibes to it. That perfectly nails it. So getting back to, so this isn't your first rodeo with Helen. Did you initially, I guess when you started writing, did you initially start out thinking I want to do more horror books, or were you just kind of like, I want to go where it comes?
When I first started writing comics, because before then I was writing like screenplays and stuff, like right after high school, 2015, I graduated high school. And before that I was dabbling in like writing short scripts and stuff. Right after high school, while I was in the nursing program, in my free time I'd write short scripts, and they'd range from like 5 pages to 40 pages sort of thing. And eventually, like long story short, I challenged myself later on. It was like, I want to write a feature length script, and I want to do it within 45 days, at least the first draft. And that's how the Gallows Man came about. And then over the course of a couple years, second draft, third draft, that sort of thing. And then I put the Gallows Man away. I put it in a shelf, in a cubby. And I then, because I've grown up on reading comics, and I was at some event, and for about a year, I was thinking about like, man, I'd love to make a comic, just one comic, just a bucket list thing, make a comic. And at that point, I was thinking like, oh, I'm writing a bunch of horror stuff in that moment. So like, it'd be cool to make a horror anthology thing. But it was always a thought, just always a thought. Then one day I'm at some event, not even a comic convention or anything like that, has nothing to do with comics. And I meet Jim Kruger. Like I see Jim Kruger, he's writer of Justice, Earth X, a whole bunch of other stuff. I meet him and we have like a 10 to 15 minute conversation. And to sum it all up, like I complimented him and stuff, and like was telling him how much of an inspiration he was to me, because there's even like random back issues that he's done that I like that are just random stuff. Like he wrote a random issue of Adventures of Superman, which was a digital series in like 2012. Then it got collected and put into floppy sort of thing, where it's no one knows like the specific thing sort of thing. But I told him how much I admired and liked his stuff. And we were just talking and talking. And I did the fanboy stuff of like, what's it like working with Alex Ross? Like that sort of stuff. But through that 10 to 15 minute conversation and hearing his origins and different stuff like that, it like, that was the push. That was the thing. That was the catalyst where I thought about doing comic, at least one comic. And then now it's like, okay, I'm going to do it. To where within the next month after meeting him, I was on DeviantArt scouring for artists and stuff. And as I started making Dismay Avenue, just this one-shot horror anthology, as I was making it, I was like, holy crap. This is not just a bucket list thing. Like, this isn't just a one and done. I want to keep doing this. I love this. To where that was 2019, and I'm still writing to this day for comics sort of thing.
I mean, that's great to hear too, because I think part of I guess the pitfalls, I guess, with any independent comic, at least from what I've seen, is people like, hey, I have this great idea. They might put one issue out and then you never see it again. But I think it's encouraging, especially you went from, I have this idea, I want to do one, to now where you have kind of like your own little almost indie empire. That's very cool.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
So let me ask you, if I'm hearing you right, had it not been for this meeting with Kruger, Gallows Man might still be sitting in a shelf in a drawer or something like that?
Most likely. Like I there are two inspirations and catalysts that like push me to actually do it, like to actually make a comic instead of it just being a thought. It was the Jim Kruger interaction, and before that, like shortly before that, Comic Pop, the channel Comic Pop, Sal from Comic Pop, Tiffany, all those guys. They were also a big push. It wasn't like I had ever talked to them, but at one point they did some live streams where they talked about making comics or making a comic. Because Sal, he had made a couple indie comics in the past, like 10 years ago sort of thing. But they gave kind of a beginner's crash course in like 3 or 4 live streams of here's how you make it.
Oh, wow.
And it's not just here's how to write, here's how to find an artist. That was a part of it, but it's also like printers, publishing, crowdfunding, like different, they for beginners, they broke it down pretty well to where that was a huge resource and a huge like kick in the pants of like, well, Sal, like it is like a bunch of steps to making a comic, but Sal was able to break it down pretty well to where it's like, oh yeah, I can do this. And that wasn't the only like resource I saw in terms of how to make a comic. I recommend if people want to make a comic, check out that. You can go to Comic Pop and just type in probably like how to make a comic or something, and it'll come up. But also just look at a bunch of different sources, because again, that's a beginner's crash course. You don't get everything, but it's a good way to kind of kick you into gear, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that Jim Kruger interaction, as well as the Comic Pop channel, I think are the big pushes for me finally making a comic.
Now, let me ask you, as far as Kruger goes, was there one particular piece of advice or one thing that he said that really resonated with you that was like, all right, Miller time, let's do it?
A big thing that he had mentioned was like him starting out. And this is with anyone. Like I feel the same way. You can talk to any comic creator, they'll say the same thing. Do it because you have a passion for it. If you do not have a passion for it, don't do it. If you're going into comics thinking like instant money sort of thing, or money in general, 20 years down the road, you could be working for Marvel, DC sort of thing. You're still not making bank sort of thing. Money is not like if you're a creative writer or if you're an artist, there are so many other avenues to go down if you're looking for money. If you're looking to get that money, comics is not the way to go. Comics is you have the passion for it, you want to do this, and then money might happen along the way. But it doesn't happen to everyone. And keeping that in mind, and if you do have that passion for it, it's a good driving force, and you'll do it till the day you die, because you care about the art, your creativity, the putting the book out more than the money itself.
I'm really happy that you emphasize that. We get used to, you go into your LCS, you pick up a issue, and you hear names like Donny Cates and whatnot, and you think, oh, this I can do this. He's probably making millions from this and whatnot. First, based on look, I don't know Donny Cates, or even who was I think I saw something from Erica Schultz recently on Twitter, or X, I'm sorry, whatever they're calling it nowadays. No, it wasn't Erica Schultz. I think it was Amanda Connor, and they were using one of her drawings as a variant in I don't know if you're familiar with Marvel Snap. It's like an online card game. Yeah. And like you pay like an extra whatever, I guess, if you want this variant. And somebody was complimenting her, oh, this is so great, I'm going to download all of these. I can't. And she's like, hey, that's great, I wish they paid me for these things.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is like that's really bad when they don't get a royalty or something from that and it carrying over. But that is a thing, is like with comics, even the what we perceive as like the superstar comic creators and talents, it's one thing, like Frank Miller, Alan Moore, Robert Kirkman, like all of them obviously are making bank sort of thing. But you're like modern day big comic creators, they're making money in comics, but in terms of like main source of income, it might not be the main source of income. Or if it is, they're working on like 5 or 6 books sort of thing. Yeah. Like if you have someone who is in comics right now that is a fairly big name, if they're only working on 1 or 2 titles, that's not the only way they're getting their income. Like that's a part of it, but they're likely doing some creative writing some other way, or art in some other way, commissions, whatever it may be, or they're working for animation studio or whatever it may be. Like comics, even for like let's say an indie creator gets that big dream thing of like, oh, they're fixing to work on a Marvel title or a DC title, even if it's like a minor character, like a C-list character, B-list character. And some people might be like, oh, he's about to be making bank sort of thing. It's like, no, nope. Dude. Like he will not be able to pay rent, eat, like get groceries, all that stuff off of making that one comic with Marvel or DC. Like it's just the nature of it. So when you see these creators, they're making comics and stuff with anyone, Marvel, DC, Image, Boom, even smaller indie guys, know that most of them are doing it because they have a passion for making comics, because they can go somewhere else to make more money.
Yeah. I mean, I could tell you, I'm in northern New Jersey, and around my area, there seems to be a concentration of maybe not your A+ tier artists and writers and whatnot. Joe Quesada's actually has a summer house, I think, not too far from here.
Nice.
But there are a couple who frequent my LCS every now and then, and they'll say, "Look, yeah, I've been drawing for Marvel for like 30 years at this point, but it's always the next project I have to concentrate on."
Yeah,
And because it's their passion projects themselves. There's maybe the smaller things that they print on their own that they really make the most from, just out of pure contracts and whatnot. You did say something I wanted to go back to as far as when you were planning the process, going through these steps, and you heard about crowdfunding. Was Kickstarter your first choice for getting this out?
I had looked at all the different crowdfunding things at the time, and the big ones at that time, when because the first Kickstarter I did, basically the first book I published, was Galsman #1, and that was in 2021, so 3 years ago. At that time, the big two were Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Indiegogo has gotten better over time. There's just, at that time, there was a lot of like iffiness. Like, I'm not bashing Indiegogo, but it just seemed like Kickstarter seemed like McDonald's. Indiegogo seemed like Burger King, sort of thing.
I'm happy you said that. I was thinking you had Coke and Pepsi.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was one of those things where Kickstarter had a more, especially at that time, because you could look back at Kickstarter in the early 2010s, and like Kickstarter was a wild west in terms of crap project or good project. I'm not just talking about comics. I mean, like, it's just random stuff, people trying to steal money from you, that sort of thing. But it's gotten a lot better to where Kickstarter is, for the most part, there's security in it. There's a prestige to it of like, okay, there's a good product here. I'm likely going to get this product. And also do your research, everyone. If you're going to crowdfund something, do your research, look at the people's campaigns and stuff, see if they've done previous campaigns, and then look at like some of those updates, see if they shipped those previous campaigns. If you see that, then it's like, okay, I'm in good hands. I see that they've done it before. They've shipped. It wasn't 5 years later, then they say, oh, sorry guys, can't do the book or whatever. So Kickstarter had kind of that prestige at that time towards like, okay, I'll go with Kickstarter. Downside with Kickstarter, I don't know what Indiegogo's percentage is. Kickstarter takes 5% of whatever is raised, as well as 3 to 5% for a convenience fee. So you're looking at 8 to 10% of whatever is funded, you don't get. That goes to Kickstarter, which explains, for those that like see some Kickstarter books and it's like, wow, like $15 for a book, $18 for a book, that sort of thing. It's because we are factoring all the things. We're factoring printing the book. If we're not printing 1,000 or more copies, most indies are printing hundreds of copies. You're looking at about $3 a unit, sort of thing, $3 to $4 a unit. So you have that. Then you have shipping. I recommend any indie creator use Pirate Ship. You can get great deals, as well as international shipping. You get amazing deals with Pirate Ship. But you're paying with shipping. In US, you're looking at about $7 sort of thing, maybe $8. Then, like I mentioned, Kickstarter is taking. I should also mention, if you're shipping with Gemini mailers, if you're buying bundles, that's almost $1 a piece for a Gemini mailer. Not completely, but almost. Then with Kickstarter taking their percentage of the pie, like Kickstarter creators factor all this stuff in. So if you see like a $15 book or $18 book, and that's like including shipping and all that stuff.
Mhm.
That is the reason for those prices, is because like we don't have Marvel DC distribution sort of thing where we can print thousands of copies and also print it on like very crappy quality paper, because I haven't
They're
looked at a
making
Marvel book this year, but 2 years ago Marvel had the worst quality paper ever. um so they're printing on awful paper quality, whereas we're printing on like good prestige like stuff, like it feels good. It is still a floppy. It is still a
Mhm.
floppy. And this is no one's copy that's going out. This is my own copy. So if I'm bending it and stuff, don't be like, what are
Oh,
you doing?
but here, see, you could now sell that for another $10 and say this is the comic I showed on Phil's live
Yeah.
stream. There you go.
But
But
it's one of those things where like indie creators, we don't get the benefits that the big publishers get. And we also get like a little bit of our funding taken away from Kickstarter or Indiegogo. Like all of them have their own
Mhm.
percentages that they take away.
Yeah.
Um,
So the
so
moral of the
it's
story, if you're an indie creator thinking about Kickstarter, do your homework first. Plan
yes,
accordingly.
yes.
Is it? Do you find it, or I should say, how do you stand out on a platform like Kickstarter? Because you could go in and you could type comics, and you'll get anything in between pop up.
To stand out on Kickstarter, a big thing is uh, having a catchy, especially this is what I'll say with Kickstarter, because it's the very first thing that people say. Have a good thumbnail for your Kickstarter, because that's the first image they're going to see of your comic. Like they have to then click on it to then see the campaign. So the thing that attracts them is the thumbnail image of art, then your title of your Kickstarter. Like mine is like the Gallows Man number 1 through 3 : and then I have like the genre so that people get a little bit more. It's like a superhero or golden age action / dark comedy sort of thing. And then you also get like a 1 to 2 sentence space that gives the people like, hey, this is what it's about sort of thing.
That's
And
your hook.
mine,
Yeah.
yeah, mine is always Adam West Batman plus uh, uh, Inglorious Bastards equals the Gallows Man sort of thing.
Yeah, and you
Like,
definitely hit it on there too. And I have to say too, it is every time. I think it's great that every time, like when you see the villain, for example, and he does that thing, you're like, oh my god, how can this happen? The fact that he's written with a lisp, it almost like it almost lightens it up, but at the same time makes him that much more twisted.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's twisted. It's I see, and I'm not saying I am these people. I'm saying they're more just inspirations for me in the writing of Gallows Man. I see like people like Tarantino as well as Taika Waititi who can walk that line fairly well. Tarantino, you have it with Inglorious Bastards, where like he's telling this story. He is also clowning on the Nazis some. You see that like
Hmm.
throughout and towards the end, but he is also telling this story, and has some clowning on the Nazis here and there. Taika Waititi with Jojo Rabbit. It's a fairly serious story, and then Taika Waititi plays Hitler. Like that's that's
Mhm.
a thing, but he walks the line pretty well, while also clowning on Nazis, kind of, because with Jojo Rabbit, something that it's a very tiny part of that movie, but something that is very interesting in terms of a joke, but also being kind of real, but just exaggerating a little bit, is anytime a Nazi in that movie walks into another Nazi party member's house, their what's up or
Mhm.
hello is hell that guy.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't want to say it because I don't want someone to clip me saying that. but that's their what's up or that's their hello, to where like once someone says it, everyone else has to say it. And like you see it and it's like, that's like so stupid. But that is kind of how
Mhm.
it was back then. That was their what's up, or that was their, oh, greetings sort of
Mhm.
thing, was hell so and so. It's like,
Yeah. It's kind of like um, earlier, or I guess you could say up to the 70s, Mel Brooks, you had a lot of the same things. You know, even with, if you want to think about it, Blazing Saddles, you confront the topic of racism by just throwing everything you can into
Yeah, yeah.
one movie. Trying to think. There was another point I wanted to bring up about Gallows Man, and it escaped me for a second. I have to say this: it was definitely original and refreshing. It took me by surprise. And again, just from what we've been saying, you have that juxtaposition of here's this hyper violent, ultra kind of world, but it's done in this style that kind of disarms you. And I'll say this: you do really nail that Adam West vibe every time he's in his kind of bat cave. I guess you could say type of headquarters is probably the
Yeah,
better
yeah.
thing. I also I let's talk a little bit about his sidekick. Was it Newsboy?
Yeah, Newsboy. He's a 10-year-old that's basic, or 10, 11-year-old who's basically wearing a executioner outfit sort of thing.
But you know, it's kind of it's just kind of an interesting juxtaposition because you have a 10-year-old and he's, you know, very cartoonily drawn. Like he looks like he could be like a Hummel almost underneath that
Yeah, yeah.
hood. But yeah, he's dressed like an executioner. And then there was a backup story in issue 2. He's sleeping in it looks like a vampire
Like a
coffin.
coffin sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So where did some of that kind of come from?
Well, and also like people can read into this in terms of the desensitization of violence sort of thing. That was a part of me writing this. But if you do read it and you're just having a funny time with it, there's no problem with that as well. But like with Newsboy, you have this society that there's the desensitization of violence, and there's this like praise of like, yeah, Gallows Man, go get those guys. Like not I'm not even talking about the Nazis. I'm like talking about like some of the other villainy that might be in the city. It's like, yeah, go get that guy, like hang him. And you have little kids like looking up to him, similar to how I mentioned with Golden Age. You have like our real life Golden Age. You have little kids picking up these books, and it's like, yeah, I like this guy. I aspire to be him. This guy that's shooting the bad guys or whatever.
Yeah.
And
Punch the
so
Nazi.
if you have that, and you have this world of the hyperization of that, there would be children that like want to do that. And so Newsboy is almost like a result of that, of like the society that is desensitized to it, to where it's like, I'm gonna be that hero. And like he's also, you see in that 2-page short, like he's also kind of dark because like you mentioned, he sleeps in like a coffin basically. And there's little details in the art. If like people look at those panels, like there's like glass jars of like frogs and like bones
I
and all
noticed that
that
too.
sort of
Yeah.
stuff in his room and all that. As well as like the dream he has of like just wiping out all of the world's litterers sort of thing. That's kind of where like Newsboy came from, is like, if you had this world, even though it is just a goofy, like funny, over the top world, if you have this world, this would be the result of it, is a kid like this.
Yeah, it's very. It kind of reminds me almost of a lighter version of Kick-Ass. Just that whole
Yeah, yeah,
relationship with Hit Girl and her father.
yeah.
If you're just joining us, I should mention again, we're talking to Brandon Ingram from Dismay Comics, talking about the Gallows Man, his Kickstarter project. He's up to issue 3. That's what we're got the Kickstarter for now. So if you haven't checked him out yet, or if you're just curious, go ahead and go to the Kickstarter. It is in the chat as well as in the description of this video. One thing that I thought was really kind of interesting, and I didn't quite know what to make of this yet. When you're reading a Batman comic, and I think it's natural at this point to kind of compare Gallows Man to Batman, because it's just kind of
Yeah.
that same kind of, well, you're going for Adam West, so it kind of goes in there. You know, there's a distinction of, you know, whether you believe that Batman is the alter ego or Bruce Wayne is the alter ego. There's a distinction of when Bruce Wayne is at Wayne Manor, he's Bruce Wayne. The only time I could think of that I've seen the Gallows Man out of mask is when he's working.
Yeah, yeah.
He even sleeps in the mask and everything. And same with Newsboy. So what does that come from? Where does that distinction come in?
Well, it does come from like those series that I grew up with, such as like Batman comics and different stuff like that. Of like with Batman, like Bruce Wayne, the person he is Batman, and then Bruce Wayne's the alter ego, and like there's other heroes you can do that, and you can also do vice versa. So Gallows Man is that, but also kind of uh, satired and parodied to it's a little bit hyperized to where, like you said, he wakes up in the morning, hits the alarm clock, pulls the sheets off the bed, and he's in his whitey tighties, but he still has the cowl on. And he's just like, he still is like talking and maintaining like a golden age hero or silver age hero, where it's like, yes, such a great day here in town city, like that sort of thing. To where, yeah, that is the Gallows Man. And
Even
he
when he's
does
doing
carry,
even when he's picking up after his dog, he's got the cowl on. He's still got that same kind of vigor of I'll take care of it,
yeah, exactly. like that is who the Gallows Man is. And then it even also carries over into like his human persona, or Gallows Man is a human, but his like day-to-day persona of Bart Dickerson working at a funeral parlor and stuff. Like he still is somewhat upbeat. And then issue 2, events happen to where it's like the opposite of issue 1 sort of thing. But yeah, that's very much Bart Dickerson. The Gallows Man is him, and it comes from the influences that I grew up with, such as Batman, and just kind of hyperizing it, kind of.
One more question before we start to go in for a landing here. Tell us about the villain, the swastika.
So Major Swastika, he is the main villain of the Gallows Man. He is a leader of kind of this Nazi cult, but he's kind of like he's the over the top villain that you would see from Silver Age, Golden Age, even the 80s. You'd see over the top villains in the 80s. He also is just like he is more obsessed with the image of the swastika more than like whatever the Nazi party represents, sort of thing. He's like just this over the top villain sort of thing that you would see in those classic comics. And he has a Elmer Fudd speech impediment, to where you're reading some of his dialogue and stuff, and he can't even pronounce his own name correctly. Like he's Major Swastika. Like he's got like all this the Elmer Fudd lisp and the way he says stuff. Just adding to a menacing bad guy, but also like when you're reading it, you're picturing this force, but he's like, oh, the Gallows Man, we gotta stop the Gallows Man, like stuff like that.
Yeah, the vibe kind of, when I was reading it, it almost reminded me of Bane in the Harley Quinn cartoon series. Yeah, but every time you're like, oh, this guy's a joke, he takes that left turn, like, oh yeah, he's the bad guy. That's why.
Yeah, he's a joke, but he is still a bad guy. He still is like the embodiment of Golden Age, Silver Age bad guy sort of thing.
I'm going to take us in for a landing. I'm going to say this. I've read the first 2 issues digitally that you sent me. Very well done. It's funny. I'm not going to give you any spoilers. Issue 2 has that Weekend at Bernie's moment that I was actually cracking up in my living room. My wife's like, what are you cackling at?
That's still like one of my funniest parts with issue 1 and 2 is the I'll say this for people. There is essentially a Weekend at Bernie's sort of thing. He's marionetting a dead henchman, and it's so dumb, but it's funny. Like that was one of the scenes where any writer, you should enjoy what you write, especially if you don't have any editorial over you or anything. If you have 100% control, love what you make. And so writing that scene, like I was just like laughing out of just how dumb it was but it was very funny in writing. So thank you.
Now let me ask you this too, because I know that you said that you have a start like in script writing and screenplay. Typically in script writing, you already know before you start writing, this is how it begins, this is what's in the middle, and this is at the end. Whereas from what I'm reading more, like I've been doing a lot of reading about Stephen King and his methods. He's more like, yeah, I want to start and really like live in these characters and see where they go. Keeping this in mind, do you have a definitive idea of where this story goes?
Oh yeah. Like I issue 4, because it's a 4-issue miniseries. Like, so issue 4 is the end of the miniseries. But that doesn't mean it's like the end of this world sort of thing. Like Tales from Town City, I still want to make at least a couple more issues of that, following some minor characters within this world. And also there was like great reception to a Rusty Hook and Hypno Ray story in that it follows the 2 homeless villains. There was great reception to that story in Tales from Town City #1, because that story is just these 2 homeless villains trying to use expired coupons at the grocery store. One of them has hypnotism powers, but they're very awful and poor hypnotism powers, to where he's struggling to hypnotize the person to thinking these expired coupons aren't expired. It's very dumb, but very funny. And there's great reception to that, to where I like thought of a good 3 to 4 issue miniseries with them. And yeah, like there's it can always go more. The Gallows Man itself, the miniseries will end at issue 4, but I've thought of many ideas, but there's only one that I really, really like. I have an idea for a sequel miniseries, but I don't want to do it right after the Gallows Man miniseries ends. I want to give it 5 to 10 years before I do it. So there's always more with this story, but you had mentioned the writing. Yeah, when I'm writing, this isn't like everyone has their form of writing. I am not really like a script Bible guy, where like I have all the world building and all that stuff before I even start writing an issue, or before I even start writing this or that. I do outlines. I will do outlines. I'll do basic outlines for a series or for an issue. But how I write, I prefer to go in and like just starting to write the story, and the story just kind of takes me along the way. These characters, I may have an idea of what they were in the very beginning before I started writing, but these characters almost take a life for themselves. It sounds weird, because ultimately, yes, it comes from my brain or any other writer's brains, but they just are essentially their own beings, and you as the writer are following along for what is most natural that they would do.
It makes a lot of sense, because then you're really giving your characters a chance to flesh out and to really have realistic motivations. It's not like, well, we're going to go from here to here.
Yeah.
Dope Comics just came in. Dope, I was thinking about you a little bit earlier, because we were talking a little bit of pre-code horror kind of stuff, and this definitely has a little bit of that pre-code vibe. I'm not, nobody's getting stabbed in the eye with a needle or anything like that, but definitely some vibes in there too. So again, if you're joining me, we're just about to wrap up. I've been talking to Brandon Ingram from Dismay Comics about The Gallows Man, now on Kickstarter. Issue 3 is ready to go. Brandon, anything you want to leave us with? What do you see past the Kickstarter?
First, I'll say thank you to everyone that's supported the Kickstarter thus far. I wasn't expecting it to be this high so soon. Thank you guys. Let's keep the momentum going, because hey, like this is amazing to see. I have this Kickstarter for The Gallows Man. I am also working on a number of other projects, some through Dismay Comics, a lot through other publishers or other collaborations with other creators and stuff, to where 2025, there's likely going to be at least 2 to 3 things that are coming out with me or has my name attached. And then in the future, there might be, because there's 3 or 4 other series in the future in 2025 or 2026, you'll likely see even more series, while also seeing more from the Gallows Man, more from Dismay Avenue, more from Tales from Town City, sort of thing.
So how's the best way we can follow up with you to see what you're up to?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Dismay Comics. It is Dismay Comics. There's no underscore between the Dismay or comics or anything like that. I lucked out in getting that for all of them. So yeah, you can follow along Dismay Comics on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Also have a YouTube channel. I don't promote it hardly ever because it's mostly just me and my buddy just shooting the breeze and having fun. But we have a podcast called the Dismay Comics Podcast where we're two novice comic creators, comic writers, and we talk about creating comics sometimes. Sometimes we'll pitch stuff, just random pitches. And then sometimes we're just having deep philosophical talks. Sometimes we'll be talking about recent stuff. Like the most recent video was, it's also an audio podcast. We don't have our faces sort of thing. But it was 2024 Crow versus 1994 Crow, like diving deep into it. Like I went into the theater with like a notepad. I was a madman. I took notes sort of thing in the 2024 Crow, where we were talking about that for like 2 hours. It's insane. It's ridiculous.
From what I understand, you may have had a lot of time room to stretch out.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. I'm a very tall person. But and also, if you don't want to make a commitment to a 2, sometimes 3 hour podcast episode, I completely get it. I completely understand. Me and Tio do it just for us, and if other people like it, that's great. I do recommend checking out the clips though. Sometimes I'll upload clips from the podcast that are like 1 to 2 minutes sort of thing. Check out at least the Todd McFarlane Spawn intros, the HBO Spawn intros. We did some parody versions of that. We love the Todd McFarlane Spawn show, and it isn't like being mean to Todd McFarlane. We're just kind of joking about how he does the intros, kind of give our own interpretation.
It's so funny when you said that, because the first thing I thought of is I remember liking the show as a kid. The second, and we're going, early 90s. It was still the early days of the internet. There was no YouTube or anything like this.
Yeah.
There was no kind of warning. Hey, by the way, McFarlane has a really heavy lisp. Because as soon as he opened his mouth, it was like, that kind of took me out of the spooky vibe. I guess it was a little bit like the Major Swastika.
And also, yeah, McFarlane is like dead serious in those intros, and you don't see any intros like that HBO show intro where he's just like, he's turned around and the camera's panning through Todd's Toys dark warehouse or whatever the heck he's in, and then it comes to him, he turns around in his chair, and then he's usually like, imagine if you would, I'm in an alleyway, you see me with my pants pulled down, I'm pissing in the alleyway, I turn and look at you, what would you do? Al Simmons was faced with that dilemma. Hi, I'm Todd McFarlane, Creator Spawn. Is like
yeah, and it's like I could see he was trying to go for those like Twilight Zone type of intros that got you like your attention, but it was like
as Rod Serling stuff.
As soon as you heard the lisp, and it was like, I have to rewind this because I was just not into listening at all. But hey, look, it's been a little bit over an hour. I do want to thank you, Brandon, for hanging out with us.
Yeah.
Everybody watching, do go ahead and check out, Brandon's social medias. He's YouTube, though it's kind of more of an audio thing. Kind of sounds like a Kevin Smith type of vibe. The Smodcast a little bit.
I will say, like I by no means am saying I am Kevin Smith. I admire Kevin Smith. I know people can be 50-50 on him. The guy as a creator, he is a huge influence to any indie creator, whether you like his stuff or not. What he did with Clerks, Beyond, like the guy's a huge inspiration. I love his comedic writing as well. Like I love all the Clerks movies. I like Chasing Amy. It is a funny comedy, but it's also a great movie. And Tusk is so insane, but I love it.
It's funny that you mention it too, because anytime somebody has an idea but never goes anywhere with it, the first thing I think of is like, look, sometimes you just need to take the deep dive with it. You need to say, hey, I have this idea for yoga hosers. Let me run with it.
Yeah.
Just see where it goes.
And to this day, I still haven't seen Yoga Hosers because I don't know if it's for me. I will watch it though, but it is one of those things you say take the dive into just making something out of just wanting to make it. You want to see it for yourself, and then others might like as well. Tusk was that. If anyone doesn't know the story of Tusk, they just came up with this dumb idea on one of the Smodcasts, and then it became a movie 1 or 2 years later.
Yeah,
so,
and if he ever goes with Moose Jaws, that's kind of the culmination of these podcast things. But I'll say this with Yoga Hosers, it was on Netflix for a while.
Okay.
You could abandon all expectations of a Kevin Smith movie when you see it. There is one thing that is very smart that he does with it, and that's just he has these random little introductions that I think kind of catch onto a social media addled teenager more than anything else I've seen in movies.
Okay.
And I'll say this, Johnny Depp and his daughter do a great job in it. And the Bratzies, yes, he needs to, like, that was like, all right. I haven't seen the latest Ghostbuster films, but I'm like, they definitely said, hey, let's take that and make Stay Puffs.
Yeah. 100%.
But I could go on for hours about that. I've already taken up a lot of your time. We've taken up everybody's time here too. So remember, check out Dismay Comics on all the socials, the Kickstarter. I'm telling you right now, I don't inflate indie comics or anybody who comes on my show. If there's been, I'll say this because I don't talk bad about it. If somebody sends me something and I don't like it, I don't have them on because I don't want to say, hey, just so you know, no, not for me. This is something that's very distinct. It's something that's very different. And I could say, look, there's definitely check it out. For better or for worse, it's something that definitely surprises you. Once you get into the tone of this and the humor that's in it, I think that you'll enjoy it. So go ahead and check out Brandon's Kickstarter. Hopefully the coffee's not hitting me too much where I didn't make any sense just now. But here we are. Brandon, thanks again for hanging out with us. And to everybody here at home, I hope to see you soon. Some stuff coming out this week. Peace, love, and comics. Take care.
Take care.
Oh, Evil is going to add, he does have a review coming, hopefully by Sunday.
Awesome.
If you're not familiar with Evil's comics, he does great reviews. He's been on a little bit of a retirement with it. So this is an added bonus to that.
Thank you, Mike.
All right. Thanks again, people. Take care.